Dust rose in a dirty cloud, clinging to skin and breath. Laughter rang out behind her, loud and careless. The kind that cut deeper than any blade, because it carried no shame. She stood in the back of the wagon with her hands empty but her back straight, refusing to fold into herself for the comfort of strangers. She had been traded in smiles and mockery, passed like something with no memory and no future. A joke, they said. A burden, they meant. The rancher climbed down slowly. He was not laughing. That was the first strange thing. He stood as if unsure whether to step forward or back, as if he had crossed an invisible line and only now realized it was there. The men slapped his shoulder, still laughing, still proud of how clever they thought they were. Then they rode off, their noise fading into the wide mouth of the plains. Silence settled like a living thing. She watched him carefully. People revealed themselves fastest when they thought no one was looking. He cleared his throat. You can't—" The words fell apart in his mouth. She met his eyes. Hers were calm, older than her face suggested. Older than all of this. "We're alone. Let's do what's necessary." He blinked, not understanding, maybe expecting fear, maybe anger. But what he heard in her voice was neither. It was something harder, something that had lived through fire and starvation and worse. He offered her water. His hands were steady, but his eyes kept flicking away, embarrassed by a gift he had not asked for and did not deserve. She took the cup without thanking him and drank deeply. Survival required no manners. When he gestured toward the house, she shook her head and walked away from it instead. She gathered dry wood with quicksure movements and built her own fire beneath the open sky. When the flame caught, she sat beside it, back straight, face warm in the glow. He stood at the porch and watched. He slept little that night, nor did she. But in the dark, beneath the same stars, something unfamiliar grew between them. Not trust, not yet. Understanding, and that, she knew, was necessary. Morning arrived quietly, the way it does in places that have learned not to ask permission from the sun. The land woke before they did. Wind passed through dry grass like a whispering ocean, and somewhere beyond the hills, something moved that neither of them could see, but both could feel. She was already awake. Crouched near the dying embers of the fire she had kept alive through the night. Feeding it with practiced care, the rancher stepped outside, with a tin cup in his hand and boots that sounded too loud in the waiting air. They did not speak at first. Words felt like a dangerous bridge that could collapse if crossed too soon. She took in the shape of the land, as if it were a map being burned into her memory. Her eyes followed the slope of the hills, the curve of dry riverbeds, the places where birds flew low. She tested the soil between her fingers, crushed leaves, smelled the wind. The rancher watched from a distance, unsure what she was searching for, sensing that it mattered more than anything he had ever been taught. Later, he saw her rubbing sap on a shallow wound on her arm. "You're hurt," he said without thinking. She glanced at him, then returned to her work. "Living leaves marks," she replied simply. Throughout the day, she moved through the land like it recognized her. She showed him which plants eased fever and which ones burned the skin. She warned him where snakes liked to nest and where the earth might swallow a careless step. He, in turn, showed her the fences he had built, the well he had dug by hand, the grave of a horse that had carried him through 2 winters. Neither pretended not to notice the quiet shifting between them, the way distance became choice instead of habit. When night came, coyotes cried from the dark, sharp and hungry. The rancher reached for his rifle out of instinct, but she was already awake, already standing, a blade in her hand that he had not seen her take. She did not look afraid. She looked ready. "Why do you protect this place?" He whispered as if loud words might invite trouble. She did not face him. Her eyes never left the black edge of the world. "Because I remain," she said, "and whatever holds me must not be weak." The coyotes passed without coming closer. The rancher did not sleep after that. He sat on the porch and thought about fences that were not made of wood, and freedom that could exist inside a boundary if it was chosen. When she finally sat again beside the fire, he realized something that unsettled him more than any night sound ever had. She was not staying because she had nowhere to go. She was staying because this land, for now, had not tried to own her, and neither would he. The men arrived just after noon, riding in loud and careless, as if the world existed only to echo their voices. Dust rose around their horses' legs and hung in the air like a challenge. The rancher saw them first from the field and felt something tighten in his chest that had never been there before. He wiped his hands on his trousers and walked back toward the house, knowing before they even opened their mouths that nothing good ever traveled in that kind of noise. They greeted him the way men greet a thing they believe they own, with jokes that were not clever and smiles that were not kind. He stood still and listened, his jaw set so tight it hurt. Then one of them squinted toward the fire pit near the fence, where she was working quietly with a bundle of dried herbs. "Where's your prize?" the man asked with a grin that believed itself permanent. The rancher felt heat rise under his collar. Not anger alone, something deeper. Something like shame finding its voice for the first time. "There is no prize," he said evenly. They laughed like they always had, loud and easy, as if ridicule were the only language they spoke well. One of them took a few steps forward, closer to her than the rancher liked. Too close. Close enough to remind the air of old ugliness. That was when she stood. Not sudden, not dramatic, certain. She turned to face them, wiping her hands as though finishing an ordinary task. Her eyes traveled over each man slowly, the way one studies weather before deciding whether to run or remain. "You thought I was entertainment," she said calmly. "A story for your mouths, a thing for your passing." They shifted uncomfortably, the sound of her voice not fitting the picture they wanted of her. "But I am not light enough for your laughter," she continued. "I carry names you will never know, losses you could not survive. You believed giving me away made you powerful." She paused. It did not. The air tightened. The rancher stepped beside her then, not in front, not behind. With her, and the men saw it. Something in their faces broke just a little. Not enough to make them better. Enough to make them leave. And they did. Without the last joke. Without the last laugh. When the dust finally settled, something hollow in the rancher filled. She returned to her work as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But he knew it had. That night, the stars burned brighter than usual. She sat on the porch and looked at them without speaking. No chains in her hands. No joke in her name. Only a woman who had remained. And a place that would never own her, only hold her if she allowed it.